Hello and welcome back to my channel. I have been asked if I could show from start to beginning how I make a cover with a hidden spine. So of course this is an old book, and as you can see it's sewn and has this loose part. So if a book looks like that, you can use it as a new cover. So take a sharp knife and make sure that you put your knife between the cover and the part where it's sewn. Take your time, do it carefully, and then loosen the spine from the cover. Make sure that you don't cut into the sewn part. It's easy when you have done it a couple of times, so be careful and just kind of take the knife between the edge. It's easier to see when you do the second part. Now you can see that it's almost just attached by the paper in the front and the back. So it should be easy, not heavy, then you are into the book. So make sure that you're cutting in the right place. So when it looks like that, it's just to clean it up, and then it's good to go to make another new spine for it. And for that I often use watercolor paper or something that is a bit stronger, 300 grams, maybe the back of an old writing board or something like that. Rather thin but strong. You can use any kind of paper that is strong and bendable. So take what you have. If this is the first journal you are making, don't go and buy anything. Try to find the backside of a writing journal or something like that. I'm using 300 grams watercolor paper that is used for watercolor painting, but I have painted on it and it was a bad painting, so I cut it up and use it like this. And the size should be about 1/2 centimeter shorter in the top and the bottom, and then you make it, the width of it should be kind of between the two white spaces here. So you can kind of put it between those and into the spine. And I will show you later that you should be able to open and close the book, flip it with no problem. So it shouldn't take any stop when you squeeze the book together. I will show you in a minute so you know what I mean. You can see there is a little gap between. Here you can see you should be able to flip it like this. It was a little bit too big. I eyeballed this, so it was a little crooked. This is nothing you are going to see ever, so I'm not so precise about this. Then I'm bending the paper a little bit, or the cardboard, so it follows the spine. This is a bit softer spine, it's not this really hard ones, so it's going to be a little rounded like this. So it's easier to put it in place with the glue if you bend it a little bit before. Then I'm taking my bookbinding glue, and you can use whatever glue you have, but make sure it's not that kind of glue that dries totally stiff. This is bookbinding glue, and it's a little bit flexible. It's super strong, but it's not that kind of glue that cracks when you bend something. So that's that way it's perfect. But I think you can use almost whatever you have. Then I'm gluing this down, and this will then be covered up with some textile that we sew the signature into. So this is just to secure and make the spine a bit stronger, and I often use old books, so this way I'm sure it's secured and will hold. I will cover this both on the front and the back. Here you can see how I bend it so I can make sure that it's not too big. You still need to be able to flex the book all the way. So the next thing we are going to do is to take a strong piece of textile. This is colored linen, and a piece of strong paper. And this is just because it's easier to sew the signature into this textile if it's a little bit more stiff. So this is not necessary, but I have sewn so many books now, so I have discovered this is a easier way to sew it. If the textile is too soft, it's easy to pull the thread too hard, or it won't get straight. But with the strong paper on it, it will work perfectly. If you can hear Nico in the background, it's because there are ladies in the neighborhood that are ready for for playtime. So he can smell them, and he start howling today. I don't know if it's nothing he used to do, so it's probably the neighbor's lady that is ready for breeding. So I'm cutting the edges, of course, as always, mostly just because I think it's looks better that way. Take your time when you do this. Don't be in a hurry, and it always gets the best result if you do the measurements right. So this piece should be the width of the spine, and then 1 centimeter to lap over to the front and back cover. This is a little bit too wide, so you could do it a little less wide if you would like to, but as I'm going to cover it anyway with some textile on the inside of the covers, that doesn't matter. It's better it's too big than it's too small. This is the thing that holds the signature in place. So 3 signatures will go into this one. So I'm finding the middle, both in the width and length, and do a mark. And depending on how wide your spine is, you need to adjust the measurements. But for this one, I'm making sure that I have that 1 centimeter on every side, so both sides, so I can glue that to the cover. And then I divide the other part in 3 and put 1 in the middle and the other 1.5 centimeter to the side. This way I get all my 3 signature into the spine and not sewn to the part that is glued to the front and the back cover. I hope you understand, but I think you maybe need to look at this 1 or 2 times and see the whole recording, so then it's easier to understand what I'm talking about. So 3 holes for each signature, 1 in the middle and 2 centimeters from the bottom and 2 centimeters from the top. And this is important that you make a mark so you know which part that is up and which part that is down. It can otherwise be a problem when you're going to sew if there are a few millimeters that are wrong. So up and down is important in the book and on the signatures. So now it's time to sew in the first signature, and you can see I'm marking where the hole is, and I'm going to take my tool and make the holes from the inside. If you're not sure about the measurements, you can do them on the inside. I eyeball where to make the holes, so that's up to you how you want to do it. So now I'm going to show you how to sew it in. I had done this on another book, so I record that. So I have sewn in 2, and it's time for the third one. I'm putting a couple of clamps so the paper won't move, and then I'm making the holes. And the same again, make sure you know which. I have the yellow clip for up and the white for down, so that way I can see. I'm using double thread, and this is a crochet thread, and it's really strong. You can use waxed thread or that kind of thread that is woven into carpets. That's also really strong. Starting in the middle and make a little knot on the double thread so it will stay in place in the middle of the book. And then I'm doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitching out in the middle, up on one of the sides, into the paper from the back. And then I'm going all the way down to the 3rd hole and out again, the same way as when you do it right into the book. Instead we are sewing it to this little piece that are going to be the hidden spine. I actually think this is easier. It's easier to sew it to this little piece than into the hard cover. This is the tricky part when you have the last stitching to go back into the book from the back, where you already have a thread. So make sure you don't put your needle right between the other 2 threads, then it won't be able to do the knot. Putting 1 thread on each side of that middle thread. Just putting a couple of clamps so you can see better. And now you're making sure that this is really tighten up. You don't want anything to move and be loose. So almost so the page is bending up. So make sure that it's really like a string on a guitar feeling of it. And then I'm making a knot to keep it in place. Little bit more. To make sure it's really tight. This can be a bit difficult if you are a newbie to get it really strong if you have a hard-covered book and paper all over. But so this is, I think this is easier than to do it straight through the book. And we have the signatures in place. And you can still see we have space to glue it in on the sides of the book. I'm going to have this cover as it is on the inside. So I'm not going to cover this. So I'm using a eco-dyed textile that are a little bit brownish. But now I can see that the white part is peeking out. So I'm taking a paper that is eco-dyed and also some thin textile that will make it look like the book is really old. They had this netting when they were sewing books together in the old days. So I'm taking my ink and darken this in case it would be peeking out. I want it to look like the pages has been there since the 1800s. So the book is from 1834. So then I'm taking a little piece because it's just going to peek out in up and down. Then I'm making it look like it's really old and have been read thousands of times. Pulling the textile a bit so. And this is a embroidery textile, but very thin. So it's linen textile, and I have just coffee dyed it to make it look a bit more old. So I'm taking the textile so it peeks out a little bit with the threads, and then a piece of paper on top of it, just because it's easier to make it stay in place with the glue covered, so you don't get glue on all over your fingers. And the same on the other side. A lot of glue, make sure that it's properly done. This glue dries transparent, so it doesn't matter if you can see a bit of it when you make the book. It will dry matte and transparent. Squeezing this down. A little bit too big, so we can cut a piece off. And this will also be covered by the other piece, so you don't need to do it so neat. Trying to remember which was up and down. I have done so many books now, so it's starting to get a bit messy in my head. So then when I'm gluing it in, I'm making sure that it's a lot of glue into the spine and right where the bend is for the front and the back of the cover. You can use a brush or piece of paper or whatever to just make sure that the glue is in every corner and down into the bending part of the spine. Then I'm also making sure to put glue directly onto this part. So I'm gluing the threads around the edge of the paper and the textile, and here you can see I'm putting it right onto the threads, so that will help the threads to stay strong and not move and get weak. And then you put it in place. If you have some kind of heavy thing to put on it or a clamp, it will help. And then make sure to glue it down between the signatures properly. Press it down and make sure that it will be glued down properly. Glue all the way out to the edge on the textile. A little bit more there. Then make sure to work this a little bit. Press it down and check twice that it's glue everywhere. And then you can put a couple of clamps between the signatures where I'm pressing it down right there. And where I put the textile and the little paper piece, it probably soaked up a little bit more glue than other places. So sometimes you need to add a little bit more glue in the space between the old spine and the new spine. I can see that you can see here it's not glued down properly, so I'm opening up again the edge and put in more glue. Better more than less. The same on this side. It has soaked up into the other textile piece, so more glue and more press. And now I'm putting a clamp on each side. So I'm sure that this part will be glued down properly. And then we are going to leave this to dry for a little bit before we do the next part. So the next thing we are going to do is to cover up the threads in the middle of the signatures. Also to make sure that the knots won't go anywhere or get ripped up. So I'm taking a piece of eco-dyed textile that I think goes well with the papers. So white papers, white textile, and dark papers, dark textile. You can use whatever textile you want, but I do it that way. So small stripes that will just cover the middle of the paper. Putting glue on the threads and making sure that it's glue on the knot, and then I'm putting the threads into the spine. And by doing this, I'm making sure that the thread will be extra strong and you won't get caught in the thread and rip it up. I like when it's secured under this piece of textile. And also beautiful, of course, that you don't see the sewing. This is optional, but I'm showing you how I do it most of the times. I want to be sure that the books I make is going to last for a long time, and that the owner will be able to use it however they want and open and close it several times to write and play in the journal. These are a little bit different with the dark papers, but they are so beautiful, and there is no problem to write on them. You can even use a white pen if you would like to, just to do it a little differently. But an ordinary dark blue or black pen works perfectly on this too. Pressing the textile on both sides of the threads, so the glue is securing the threads properly. I'm thinking if you're going to remove a whole signature and replace it, you need to rip it out anyway, so this way it's beautiful and secured. Let it dry with the papers flat at the sides so they don't glue together. I'm just putting a painting brush and a piece of a stick between it now when I'm gluing it, so they won't be glued together. So I hope this was helpful, and that you can use this when you make your own books. And it's not difficult at all. When you have done it a couple of times, it's as simple as making a spine that you can see. So I'm leaving this to dry overnight, so it's secured, but don't put them together. Leave them like this so they can dry properly. Thank you for watching, and see you soon again. Bye bye from Sweden.